Good evening, my friends. The storm outside is fierce tonight, with the rain pouring down and thunder rolling in the distance. But as you listen to this story, let it be a gentle escape, a gift to help calm your mind and ease you into a peaceful sleep. Close your eyes, let the world fade away, and allow the story to carry you into a place of rest. Sweet dreams await. The storm raged outside. The wind howled as the rain battered the windows with relentless force. Thunder rumbled in the distance, sending shivers down my spine each time it echoed through the house. I sat by the window watching the sheets of rain blur the streetlights outside. The world felt distant, locked away behind the torrential downpour. It had been a few days since I moved into this old house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just a small two-bedroom place tucked between the trees. But I needed a change of pace. Life in the city had become too noisy, too suffocating. I thought I'd find peace here, a break from the chaos. But now, as I sat in the dim light of my living room, I wasn't so sure. The house had a strange feel to it. Old wooden beams, creaky floorboards, and an air of neglect that seemed to cling to every corner. The landlord, he was an odd man, distant and quiet, with eyes that always seemed to linger a bit too long. He handed me the keys with barely a word and left me to settle in. At first, I told myself it was just the usual post-move jitters. Maybe I was tired from the long drive, or maybe it was the storm outside. But no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, I couldn't escape the feeling that something wasn't right about this house. As I unpacked my things, the wind outside began to pick up, rattling the windows with every gust. The sound was loud, almost unnatural, like the house was groaning under the weight of the storm. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the task at hand, but the unease gnawed at me. I went about my business, putting things in order, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That was silly, of course. I was just adjusting to the new place. But every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a shadow, a flicker of movement. And when I turned to look, there was nothing there. I tried to tell myself it was the storm playing tricks on me. But then came the sound, a whisper. It was so soft at first, I thought it was just the wind. But as I stood frozen, listening intently, I realized it wasn't. It was clear, deliberate, like something was calling to me. My heart skipped a beat as the voice faded into the howling wind. I tried to shake it off. It was just my imagination, right? But as the minutes passed, the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. The shadows in the room seemed to shift ever so slightly, and I could feel them following me, closing in on me. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the room, casting long, twisting shadows across the walls. I glanced around, half expecting to see something move in the darkness, but there was nothing. Still, the unease lingered. I'm not sure how long I sat there, staring into the storm. But I knew one thing for sure. Something was waiting for me in this house. And it wasn't the storm outside. The storm had been raging for hours, the thunder and lightning never letting up. Outside, the world had become a blur of rain and darkened shapes. The wind seemed to press against the house, as if it were trying to force its way inside. I was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, trying to ignore the feeling that something was wrong. But the house was alive with strange sounds, creaks, whispers, the scratching of something against the walls. I told myself it was just the wind, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm that seemed to be brewing inside the house. Every time the lightning flashed, I could see the shadows in the corners of the room stretch and twist, as though they were reaching for me. I tried to stay calm, focusing on the rhythmic tapping of the rain against the window. It was a soothing sound, one that should have brought comfort, but instead it made my skin crawl. Then the whisper came again. This time it was louder, clearer. It seemed to come from behind me, like someone was standing right there in the room, breathing down my neck. I froze, heart racing, my body stiff with fear. The air in the room seemed to grow colder, and the shadows on the walls shifted in time with the flashes of lightning. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain steady. Nothing. No answer. I slowly turned my head, scanning the room, but I saw nothing. The room was empty, as it should have been. I told myself it was just the wind again, or maybe a trick of the light. But the feeling of being watched, of something lurking just out of sight, would not leave me. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, the only sound in the stillness. I tried to focus on it, counting the seconds to steady my breath, but each tick felt like a countdown to something horrible. My eyes darted around the room, unable to settle on anything for too long. Every movement, every shadow, felt like a threat. And then I saw it. A figure, just a glimpse at first, standing in the doorway. It was tall, dark, and distorted, like it was made from the very shadows of the room. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I wondered if I was imagining it. But then the figure stepped forward, and I could see it more clearly. It wasn't human. It was something else, something dark and twisted, with long, gnarled limbs and a face that seemed to shift with the shadows, never settling into any recognizable form. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure didn't move, not at first. It just stood there, watching me with eyes that seemed to burn through the darkness. The storm outside raged louder, the thunder shaking the walls, but inside, everything was unnervingly quiet. "Please," I whispered, not sure who I was speaking to. "Please, leave me alone." But the figure didn't leave. Instead, it stepped closer, its form becoming clearer. With each step, its presence filled the room, and I could feel the air grow thick with dread. My chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was trapped, surrounded by the dark, by the storm, and by something that wasn't quite real. And then the whispers came again, louder, more insistent. "Help, help." The voice sounded so familiar, like it was coming from deep within me. But I knew it wasn't my own. It wasn't anyone I knew. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely more than a whisper. But the figure didn't answer. It just kept coming closer, its shadow stretching across the room like a wave, engulfing everything in its path. I could feel it pulling at me, drawing me into its darkness. I stumbled backward, my feet tripping over the rug as I scrambled to escape. But there was no escape, not from the storm, not from the figure, not from the shadows that seemed to follow me. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing the figure in its full form. A twisted, contorted thing with hollow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp, jagged teeth. And then everything went black. The storm outside is getting worse. The rain doesn't just fall now. It beats against the windows, like 100 tiny fists pounding at the glass. And the thunder, it's no longer distant. It's right above us, shaking the walls of this old house, rattling my very bones. I don't know how much longer I can stand this. I've been sitting in the dark, staring into the shadows, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. The house is suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm being hunted, that I'm not alone here, that something is watching, waiting, inching closer, with every moment that passes. I can't even explain what happened after I saw it. The thing in the doorway. I should have run, should have gotten out of this cursed house, but I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, eyes locked on that twisted form, my mind screaming to escape, but my body refusing to obey. It stepped closer. Its limbs, long and spindly, seemed to stretch unnaturally, like they were being pulled by an unseen force. Every time the lightning flashed, I saw it more clearly, its features warped, as if reality itself couldn't hold it in place. The eyes, those empty, hollow eyes, were fixed on me, burning into my soul, pulling me into its darkness. I tried to scream, but the sound didn't come. My throat was tight, choked with fear. My heart raced in my chest, a frantic beat that seemed too loud in the stillness of the room. "Help us! Help!" the voice whispered again. But this time, it wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus, a twisted, distorted mass of voices that seemed to rise from the very walls themselves. Each voice was layered over the other, pleading, begging, crying out for something, for release, for freedom, for me. I don't know what it wanted, but I couldn't bear to listen to it anymore. So I shut my eyes, clamped my hands over my ears, and tried to block it out. I thought I could escape it. I thought I could wake up, and this would all be gone. But when I opened my eyes again, I was still here, in this house, with it. The figure was closer now, no more than 5 feet away. Its shadow seemed to stretch across the room, like a living thing. A thick, pulsating mass that enveloped the walls. I could hear it breathing. Or was it growling? I couldn't tell. The sound was so deep, so guttural, like it was coming from the very depths of the earth. I tried to back away, but my feet wouldn't move. It was as if the shadows had me rooted to the floor. I looked around desperately, searching for something, anything, that could help me. But the room was empty. No escape. No way out. That's when I saw it. The thing, the creature. It didn't just stand there anymore. It was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Its long fingers reached toward me, the tips of its nails scraping the floor, leaving deep gouges in the wood. And then it spoke, not in words, but in a sound that made my head spin. A rush of voices, rushing through my mind, all speaking at once. A million different voices, each one more desperate than the last. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were demanding it. Free us, they cried. Let us out. The pressure in my skull increased, like my mind was being crushed under the weight of their voices. I felt as if I was suffocating, drowning in the endless, relentless demands. And then I saw something in the corner of the room, something I had missed before, hidden in the shadows. A dark shape, a shape that shouldn't have been there. It was another figure, but this one wasn't like the first. It was smaller, more human, and as it moved, I could see its face, or rather, I could see what was left of it. Half of its face was gone, melted away, like something had torn it off. The empty socket, where an eye should have been, stared at me, and I could feel it, its gaze, burning into me. It reached out with its half-missing hand, fingers twitching as if it wanted to touch me, pull me into its agony. I turned away. I couldn't look at it anymore. The room was closing in on me, and I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape. But the shadows were everywhere now, swirling around me, pushing me down, suffocating me in their cold, dark embrace. And just as the darkness seemed to swallow me whole, I heard one last whisper, "You're next." The storm outside is no longer just a storm. It's a living, breathing entity, crashing and howling, tearing at the walls of the house, as if it wants to rip the very roof off. The rain is now a torrent, flooding the streets, while lightning strikes so close I can feel the electricity in the air. Every flash seems to freeze time, illuminating the room in blinding white, only to drown it in darkness again. I can barely hear my own thoughts above the roar of the thunder, and I wonder if I'm truly awake, or caught in some nightmare that refuses to end. The figure, it's still here, the thing in the shadows. I thought it would leave after the whispers, after the promises, but it doesn't. It stays. And now, it's not just standing there waiting. No, now, it's moving. Moving in a way that seems to bend the very fabric of reality. Its limbs stretch, twist and snap in directions they shouldn't, as though it's no longer bound by the rules of our world. I can hear its breathing now, ragged and sharp, like something wounded and hungry. The air around me has grown thick, suffocating, the smell of damp earth and decay pressing into my lungs with every breath. My hands shake violently as I try to hold on to the flashlight. The beam flickers, fighting against the darkness, but every time I think I've seen it, really seen it, the figure moves, its shape shifting like smoke caught in the wind. The floor beneath me creaks, and I realize I've been backing away without even thinking. I stumble, falling hard onto the floor, my hands scraping against the cold wood. I barely manage to catch myself before I crash into the wall. My heart races, thundering so loudly that it's all I can hear, louder than the storm, louder than the voices that still call out from the depths. Help us, free us. The voices have grown stronger now, layered together into a cacophony that fills the house. But they're not just asking for help. They're angry. They're demanding. They're telling me something. Telling me what I must do. I can feel the presence of the shadows surrounding me. Their coldness presses against my skin, creeping along my spine like ice. I turn desperately, searching for any way to escape this madness. But there is nowhere to run. No door. No window. No way out. I stand up, gasping for breath, and I turn to face the darkness. The creature is there. Closer now. Too close. It's not just standing anymore. It's reaching. The fingers, long and gnarled, stretch toward me, slow, deliberate. as if savoring the moment. The face, or what's left of it, twists in the shadows, its empty eye socket locked onto mine. I feel its presence, its gaze, cold, suffocating, like it's pulling my very soul into the darkness. Please, I whisper, voice cracking, pleading with whatever is controlling this nightmare. Please, I don't want this. But the thing doesn't listen. It can't listen. It's not here to answer. It's here to take. And then I hear it. A noise that's too real. A crack sharp, splitting through the silence. The walls themselves seem to shake. And I feel a tremor beneath my feet. I can hear something moving in the walls. Something alive. Something trying to break free. A sudden flash of lightning illuminates the room once more. And in that instant, I see it. The hole in the wall. Wider now. The dark cavity pulsing. As if breathing. The shadows within are no longer just shadows. They're shifting, writhing, and there's someone trapped inside. Their voices scream from the abyss, desperate, pleading, let us out. I don't know why I do it. I don't know what possessed me, but I move toward the wall, drawn to it, as if the shadows are calling me by name. My hands are trembling, but I reach out, my fingers brushing against the cold, damp surface of the wall. The darkness is thick, suffocating, and as I press harder, the wall seems to give way. It cracks open like dry clay, revealing what lies beyond, and I see them, hundreds of eyes, hollow, empty, staring at me from the blackness, faces twisted in agony, their mouths open in silent screams. Their bodies are bound by chains, tangled in dark roots that seem to pulse and twist, alive with some ancient force. They were human once, but now they are nothing but shadows, trapped for who knows how long. Help us. The air in the room shifts. Heavy, thick, suffocating. I can't breathe. I can't think. The shadows are everywhere now, swirling around me, pulling me toward the hole in the wall. I feel my body being dragged in, my feet lifting off the ground. The walls around me are closing in, the darkness pressing tighter, suffocating me. And then the figure, the one in the doorway, speaks again, its voice a low growl that reverberates through my entire being. You must free them, or you will join us. In that moment, I understand. The shadows, the whispers, the storm, they were never about escape. They were about bringing me here, bringing me into the dark. The storm has not stopped. In fact, it's worsened. The house trembles with each strike of lightning, the wind howling like a chorus of lost souls. But the real storm is here, inside me, inside this house, this cursed place. I've tried to fight it, tried to run. But it's useless. The shadows have me now. They've taken me, and there's nothing left for me to do, except face it. Face them. The walls are closing in. The darkness is overwhelming. I can feel it crawling through my skin, twisting inside my mind. I can hear their voices, countless voices, all speaking in unison now. Free us. Join us. I can't breathe. My body is shaking, my chest tight as if the very air is being sucked from my lungs. The hole in the wall is wider now, a gaping maw that threatens to swallow me whole. The eyes inside, the eyes of those who were once human, stare at me, pleading, screaming, begging for release. But their voices are lost in the storm. Their cries are just noise, just the wind. I reach out, my hand trembling, as I touch the jagged edge of the wall. The darkness is thick, suffocating. My fingers brush against something cold, smooth, and I realize too late that it's a chain, a rusted chain that holds them in place, I understand now. The chains, the whispers, the storm, they've been trapped here for years, decades, maybe longer, and they want out. They want me to break them free. They want me to take their place. But the truth is, I can't escape. None of us can. I stand there for what feels like an eternity, surrounded by their screams, the howling of the wind, and the crashing of thunder. The shadows rise around me, thick and suffocating, curling around my body like a shroud. I know what I have to do. I know what's coming. There's no escaping it, no running from it. I've been marked, chosen. With a last desperate cry, I tear the chain from the wall, feeling the cold metal bite into my skin. I can feel their presence, feel them pulling me into the darkness, dragging me down into the abyss with them. You're next. And then there's nothing. No light, no sound, no storm, just darkness. It's over. The storm has passed, but the house remains silent. The shadows have claimed another soul, and the cycle continues. I wake up on the floor, drenched in sweat, heart pounding. The rain has stopped, the thunder is gone, but I'm still here, still in this house, alone. I stand up slowly, looking around. The walls are intact, the shadows are gone, but the chains, they're still there, and so is the hole. I turn and walk away, my footsteps echoing through the empty room. The house is quiet now, but I know, deep down, that it's not over, not really, because the shadows are patient, and they're waiting for the next one.